Good evening, right?
Sure.
Hey, good evening. We are so glad that you decided to join us tonight here at Fire and Water. I'm Liz.
I'm Troy. And we're done. We'll see you next week. No, I don't know.
Announcements. Exciting things are happening here online, but also we are moving to in-person. Round of applause. Super exciting. I know. We have been waiting. We have approval to start meeting together separately outside places. And so we are looking to start our weekly mystery adventures that happen weekly in the summer, and to start meeting on Sunday nights. It'll be outside. You'll have an assigned space in the parking lot.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to meet in the parking lot. We've got it all planned out. Here's how it's going to work. So June 5th, that Friday, instead of doing a Friday night in, we're doing a Friday night out.
Woo!
And we will be inviting you to come here. What we'll do, we'll explain it more as the time gets closer. We'll have you park in one parking lot, then you can walk over. You'll have a space that you and your family, your siblings can share a space. I can't let you share spaces with friends. We still have to do social distancing. But we're going to have some games, we're going to have some fun, and that's going to be our test night. So this is the reality of the situation. We have to make sure that we can practice safe social distancing. If we manage to stay in our spaces, not go to the bathroom in groups of 40, all the little things that cause problems, we will continue to do more things outside, like doing this instead of doing this as a video. We'll do it Sunday night outside, things like that. We'll have worship outside so you can sing loud or do whatever you want. We'll have games.
It'll be a good ways to meet our new neighbors next door.
Oh, yeah. But this is where we lovingly have to say, this is all a test. So we'll do the 5th, and if everyone does well, that lets us know, great, you guys want to work together and we can do this. If everyone shows up on the 5th and people walk back to their cars together or end up jumping spaces or whatnot, we're going to have people that are watching us, and so we'll know we can't do this any longer. So we're asking, please work with us so that we can do stuff together.
We know you can do it. We know you desperately want to be back together in person and start those interpersonal relationships. Just being able to see each other will be a blessing. One of the things, Troy and I have, we're here together today, but our families have been, quarantining at home together, not interacting with other people, and so our families...
Quarantine at home together means we're quarantined at home, but we're not together.
No, our families are quarantining together, but our families are one of the few that we've interacted with, and so we're those
And because of just being at church working, we have had interaction with each other on occasion. But this is, again, us being allowed to sit here, had to take a special conversation, discussing new steps, moving into new phases. But I
sanitized the table before we started.
She did. But we desperately want to be together, not because we so want to just throw it in people's faces or we just want to be together, but I was talking with some other youth pastors this morning. I told Liz about this, how the way we do things here at Fire and Water, as much as we love that we can still connect online or Zoom, is not who we are, because we are so much about you knowing Jesus for yourself. So much of the stuff that we do, like when we have a prayer night, we can't do that as a video. Things like that. We so desperately want to get back together so that we can give you the chance to have these experiences for yourself with Jesus. That when we have discussion time, even now, if we have discussion time, it's usually comments or whatever. If you've been here live with us, we value your input. We want you talking and sharing with each other. We want to give those opportunities back. So we're excited for this, because if we can get this to work, yay, that moves us one step closer, and it's just a little bit more we can do until we get to be in person normally.
Whatever that is.
I don't know.
Yeah, and in that effort, we thought that starting with a series that we've seen a lot from United Methodist churches over the course of the last few weeks, when talking about being together, when talking about what it means to live life together, are Wesley's three rules, sometimes called 3 simple rules. If you did confirmation with us, or if you've been around the United Methodist Church, you've probably heard the name John Wesley. He's one of our founders. We're called Methodist because he had a method for just about everything. lots of systems put into place and things like that. And so one of the things that he laid out that we still follow as United Methodists today, even a couple hundred years later, is that we want to do no harm, we want to do good, and we want to stay in love with God. And trying to track a little bit ago, those seem very simple, but when we dig a little bit deeper, they can sometimes be complex. We sometimes oversimplify them, but for the sake of 3 points,
It's a great start. Don't get me wrong. That's a great place to start.
do no harm. That seems
They all make sense, but the hard part is, what do they look like? How do you actually live that out? How do they work together?
yeah.
It's like I was telling Liz, some of you know I've been reading a lot of older writings by monks and weird people.
He's a nerd.
But I know. But there's this thing that they have hundreds of years ago they called praxis, which was a balance between actions you did or things you did in your life that got rid of evil or helped you get rid of sin or helped you live how you should. But then there's also actions that brought you closer to Jesus, things that would help you know him better, things that were not negating bad but doing good. And the thing that they say, and it's funny, they say this even 1600 years ago, it's like, these are all great things. They don't somehow win brownie points with Jesus. No, it didn't say brownie points. But you don't win brownie points with Jesus for doing these. They help you know God. And they help you discover who God made you to be, which is something we're all about. And
Makes me think about refining, which,
I feel
it's
like
like
I've heard
fake
that
when you're
word
here.
somewhere. But so we're going to take the next few weeks and we're going to look at these 3 different things. And we're going to start with the first one, which is do no harm, which again seems really stinking easy.
Out of James 1. Understand this, my dear brothers and sisters. You must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. Human anger does not produce the righteousness God desires. So get rid of all the filth and evil in your lives and humbly accept the word God has planted in your hearts, for it has the power to save your souls. But don't just listen to God's word. You must do what it says. Otherwise, you are only fooling yourselves. For if you listen to the word and don't obey, it's like glancing at your face in the mirror. You see yourself, walk away, and forget what you look like. But if you look carefully into the perfect law that sets you free, and if you do what it says and don't forget what you heard, then God will bless you for doing it. If you claim to be religious but don't control your tongue, you're fooling yourself, and your religion is worthless. Pure and genuine religion in the sight of God the Father means caring for orphans and widows in their distress and refusing to let the world corrupt you.
It's a really strong ending. Don't let the world corrupt you. That's huge. But there's so much in that we have to talk about, that we will talk about. But just the idea of like how much of us doing no harm really starts with us inside. Are you angry? Are you patient, slow to speak, things like that? Or are we very quick to just, I'm in a bad mood, so I'm going to hurt somebody? Not that we think that, but it kind of just happens.
It just spills out.
It just does.
Yeah. In reading this, one of the things I thought about is our words have power. There was a student a long time ago, none of you know him, who liked to complain about my driving.
It was kind of funny. Don't get me wrong. It was funny.
On the regular. For the record, I've never been pulled over driving the church bus. I've not had an accident in the church bus. Yes, I turned into a snowdrift, but you're all right. But he complained on the regular about my driving in front of all kinds of people. At church, on mission trips, and work projects, anywhere that we were, he liked to complain about my driving. And finally, I had to say to him, okay, I know that you're joking, and some of the kids know that you're joking, but not everyone does. And have you thought about what your words mean to the people who have never been in a car with me, who are thinking about maybe sending their kids on a trip or on a mystery adventure with us, and they think that I'm this horrible, terrible driver? And he's like, oh. I then also made him sit in the front seat and not say a word, like 5 hours home from a mission trip. But he had to think a lot about his words and the impact that they had outside of just our circle, because other people can hear you.
And I think that's what part of the hardest part for me reading that thing, do no harm. Okay, I don't think there's many people who consciously say, I'm going to go harm somebody today. Like, I'm going to go out and hurt somebody. Maybe you do, I don't know. I don't wake up in the morning thinking about that. But then I don't realize I'm harming people because I'm not thinking about it, or I'm not paying a close enough attention to what I'm saying or who I'm saying it to. And I mean, I'm in a different stage of life. I have a 6-year-old, and guess who says everything back to me that I say? So if I'm not realizing what I'm saying, or I'm saying something harmful without thinking about it, something just comes back. I don't think, like...
It gets repeated, maybe?
Oh, many times.
From the back seat of your car?
Oh, yeah. But, like, I know this kid that Liz is talking about. He was a good kid. He was nice. He wasn't trying to be mean to Liz. He didn't realize what his jokes were doing. And once he realized the harm that was coming from that
he could get me fired.
Yeah. That made a huge turning point when he realized this isn't a joke anymore, this is hurting somebody. Like, have you ever been in that situation where you think you're funny and then you realize, oh wait, I'm not funny, I'm hurting somebody right now. I can't do that too much. But
we speak fluent sarcasm.
Yeah,
I'm really sorry.
But I think the hardest part with this do no harm isn't, okay, I'm going to consciously make sure not to hurt somebody. I'm going to think about the actions I'm doing because they might already be harmful, and I don't even know it.
Sometimes we're just oblivious to what's going on around us. I mean, I have apologized to people in the grocery. I'm so sorry I was in my own world because I cut them off. I wasn't intending to harm them, cut them off, make them run into, the thing.
What are you doing?
Or just make them stop short. Yeah. But it happens, and it's because I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of what else was going on around me.
That's the hard thing for us to do, because let's just be honest, it's very easy to be oblivious. It's very nice. It's a nice thing to be oblivious. I like it some days. But when your eyes are opened, suddenly how you act changes. Like, I used to say this, we have upwards basketball here, which is fantastic. And if you've ever watched the 5-year-olds play basketball, it's torture. It is.
But also adorable.
Oh, adorable. That's the word I meant. But there's no rules because they don't know what they're doing. They're running up and down. They're throwing balls. They're doing whatever. They just hope to score a point. Okay. There's a reason that by the time you're 10 or 11, you're still not doing that, because if you know the rules and you're aware of what's happening, then you would now have a responsibility to act into that awareness. If you play basketball, and you've been playing basketball for years, you can't just pick up the ball and run down the court and be like, oh, I didn't know the rules. Yeah, you did. There's a higher level of accountability because of this awareness. And so that's what I think makes it hard when we say, do no harm. I've now got to raise my own personal accountability of what I see of the world around me, but then I have to act on that. If I realize I'm hurting people, even if it's by accident, now that I realize it, I have a responsibility to try and fix that. I don't want to hurt people. That's not my goal.
It's why we have expectations for behavior, because...
Just in general, we have expectations on people.
Well, yeah, because we want you're in 7th or 8th grade, even if you're a brand new Sevy, we want junior high appropriate behavior, we want high school appropriate behavior, because there's no place else in your life you can act a fool.
Well, it's that, am I acting this way because I'm aware of what everyone else and how it's bothering everyone else, or am I just in my own little world?
Well, it's finding the balance of having a good time and doing fun things and
We're not saying don't be you. We're just saying be you in the midst of other people.
Yeah.
There's a difference between the two.
Speaking of balance, Trey told me a story about cake and carrots earlier.
Well, okay, we're going to go. That's a good segue. Years ago, I was watching something and I was talking about health and how people in America, some other places as well, but we just have this idea that's out of whack of understanding balance in our lives. And so if we look at diet, what a lot of people will say is like, I'm going to eat this piece of chocolate cake, but then I'm going to eat this carrot. And by eating the carrot, it balances out the chocolate cake and we're all good. And the person doing this interview was like, no, don't eat the cake. It's that simple. Like, it's not like when you eat a carrot, somehow all the sugar you ingested disappears. All you're doing is just heaping more on top of. And I think sometimes when we think of this do no harm, and then the next, which we'll talk about next week, do good, we kind of think of it almost like it's a balance. Like if I do something bad, if I have harmed somebody, what I'll do is then I'll do something good. And we don't see how the better option is just don't harm them. Just be not, and then the good will have a bigger impact. But instead of thinking of, hey, I've got this thing in my life or this thing that's harm, I'm going to make up for it. Pastor Ben even mentioned this in a sermon a few weeks ago, how, there's something in his life that he was dealing with, and so he was trying to overcompensate with good acts to make up for it. Realistically, all that does is it's a tiresome circle of just doing too much. What he needed to do, and he did eventually, was get rid of the hurtful thing. And that is what will make growth happen. That's what, when it comes to health, dietary health, or even spiritual health, get rid of the cake. That's what will do it. I love cake. But get rid of the cake, and then...
It was Lori's birthday last week.
We ate so much cake. Let's talk about that.
But in Romans 13, it says this: owe nothing to anyone except for your obligation to love one another. For if you love your neighbor, you will fulfill the requirements of God's law. For the commandments say, you must not commit adultery, you must not murder, you must not steal, you must not covet. These and other such commandments are summed up in this one commandment: love your neighbor as yourself. Love does no wrong to others, so love fulfills the requirements of God's law.
Yeah, does no wrong to others. That's a high bar. Like Liz was saying when she read this the first time, she's like, some of these seem really freaking easy.
Like not murder?
Don't murder someone.
All right.
Woo, yeah, like
I got it. Check.
That doesn't seem too hard. And if that's all we look as do no harm is, yeah, why are we listening? What's the problem? I'm not doing any harm, no problem. I'm not doing the big hurtful things, and I think that's what we think of when we think of do no harm. For some reason we think big physical harm to other person. Yeah, don't walk up to someone and clock them. Great.
Yeah. I didn't break your arm, but I can hurt your feelings. I can say mean things. That's okay. And it's not okay, but we sometimes try to justify that. Or we think we could say something and be like, ha ha ha, just kidding.
Oh, that's a great one. That's in Proverbs.
Never takes it away.
But I think that's when it comes to do no harm. It doesn't say don't do the big ones and a little's okay. Do no harm. Like I said, that's a high bar. Love does no wrong to others. That's a high bar to hit. But
it's an amazing goal.
It's
what we're called to. It's what it means to follow Jesus.
But even with that, we've talked a lot about do no harm. Okay, do no harm to others. What about to yourself? It says do no harm. It doesn't say just don't harm anybody else. Do no harm. I mean, let's be honest, and again, good thing we're not here for discussion because you don't have to share your feelings with everyone if you want to, but like how many times have we been harming ourselves and not thinking about it, or hurting ourselves, and it leads to harming others, or I don't know what it is, but we aren't focusing enough on just being nice to ourselves sometimes.
I maybe did some quarantine baking at my house and didn't do enough walking and taking care of myself and those kinds of things. And that's doing harm to me. It's doing harm to my pants not fitting. But we often want to just apply it to everyone else, but not think about what we're putting into our bodies, the food, the cake and the carrot. A little bit of sweets is not bad, but if we eat the whole chocolate cake every day, that's not good. What are we putting into our heads?
Yeah, but
and our hearts
like
and
even
our
little
lives
things like that. Like quarantine has been hard. It's just been different. As an introvert, woohoo! But I've also learned. I know. I looked at my phone and I have the statistics on my phone on purpose so I know how bad I'm doing. And for the first few weeks of quarantine, my phone time, my screen time jumped up 20%, 25%.
Ouch.
And I was like, am I on my phone that much? Well, I'm not at work as much. I'm not at church as much. I'm not going to the store. I'm not doing the other things. And so what I was doing without realizing it is I would just pull out my phone and be on that instead. Okay, and being on your phone necessarily isn't bad, but am I harming myself by putting myself in a new habit of always pulling out my phone? Or what am I looking at on my phone? I have a ton of books on my phone. I found out I wasn't reading books as much as I was. I was watching stupid videos because I'm just so bored at night. And, you know, when you get more bored, you think of stupider things to do.
You know you've been sucked into TikTok for like hours.
Or I'm not a fan of how certain platforms for television shows just say, here's your next episode. Because you just start without realizing it. Next thing you know, 4 hours of your life are gone. Are we doing...
Only 4?
Shh.
How many of you have watched a whole season of some random show on Netflix or whatever? I know some of you aren't TV watchers, but...
I was talking with someone today, and they were upset because this season was only 10 episodes, and they burned through it too quick. I'm like, dude, you're watching a lot of TV. If only 10 episodes is too little. But again, it's one of those things that we don't realize necessarily the harm we're doing to ourselves.
And is what we're putting, you know, are the TV shows, the books we read, the videos we watch, the whatever, is it good for us? Is the way we talk to ourselves good for us?
I had that discussion with someone a little while ago asking about video games, and their parents were upset about something, and I said, well, I don't know if it's bad for you, but I can say it's probably not good for you. Like, it's not that this game was horribly bad or anything, but is it something good and uplifting, or is there something better you can be doing with your time? Again, a little bit is not a bad thing. I play video games. I've been playing Mario with Leah. Leah's learned how to play Mario.
Has she beat you yet?
Shh, nope. But I have to carry her. You know how many lives I lose because she jumps on my head or something dumb? It's playing with a 6-year-old. Okay, not to be harmful. But,
once upon a time, you guys were 6. But when we were talking about this, we talked about the verse from Philippians. Now, dear brothers and sisters, one final thing. Fix your thoughts on what is true, honorable, and right, and pure, and lovely, and admirable. Think about things that are excellent and worthy of praise. Sometimes I ask students, like the video game thing, is it any of those things? It says it should be all of those things, but is it any of them?
Again, that's another high bar. And that's, again, where we find some balance. We'll say, well, this video game doesn't blow someone's head right off.
But I'm going to watch Hallmark with my mom later, and so that'll, like, scrub my thoughts to pure.
Hallmark with your mom will never make it better. Time with your mom, yes. Hallmark Channel is the problem. Christmas movies in July because we're in quarantine. Anyway. Again, though, is it something that is uplifting? Is it something that is helpful? Again, think of that do no harm not as necessarily am I doing something bad? Am I abstaining from something where I could be doing something better? Because do no harm, really, you could do nothing.
Which is not really good either.
That's going to be harmful in the long run for you again. If you never talked to anyone, you never met anyone, you never... in the fear of not hurting anyone. You could, but then where are you going to be?
That negates the verse that talks about loving your neighbor. If you're not ever engaging with them, then you can't be loving them, really.
There's a risk to it. There's a risk to living life, but that's why we're raising the bar. Wesley says, let's try and do what we can not to hurt somebody else, not to hurt ourselves even sometimes. Another verse we had here, I'll read one because Liz has been hogging all the Bible. Romans 5 says this, bless those who persecute you, don't curse them. Pray that God will bless them. Be happy with those who are happy and weep with those who weep. Live in harmony with each other. Don't be too proud to enjoy the company of ordinary people and don't think you know it all. And this is the part we love. Never pay back evil with more evil. Do things in such a way that everyone can see you are honorable. Do all that you can to live in peace with everyone. Because that's part of the cycle, that do evil, don't pay back evil with more evil. Someone hurts me, so I now am okay to hurt you.
It's frightening that do things in such a way that everyone can see that you're honorable. I mean, it's a high bar, but don't we want that? Shouldn't that be our goal? Shouldn't that be what we strive for? Do all that you can to live in peace with everyone. The world is not living at peace with each other. I mean, is there peace in your household every day? Not always at my house.
No.
But we try, And can we do that? And how are we interacting with people when we come into contact with in public? Are we kind? Do we thank them? Are we looking out for them? Are we paying attention to whether we're harming them or not? Whether I'm gonna make them crash their grocery cart or not? Those seem like little things, but our world blew up this week because some people didn't do honorable things. And it's one of those things that's hard to talk about with you guys looking at a video camera, because I so desperately want to get your interaction. But like George Floyd, they say his name. People know his name. If you haven't seen the video, I probably wouldn't watch it. I wish I could scrub it from my mind. But that wasn't doing all that they could to live in peace with everyone. That wasn't doing things in such a way that people can see you're honorable. And horrible things happened. A man died, and it could have been preventable, and it wasn't. And it's
the question I keep asking.
I just don't even have words.
I know, and that's the hard thing about this. And sometimes there isn't words. And those of you who know Liz and I, we had planned this, so we were going to talk about this week, long time ago. And the fact that it all came down this week and the tie-in and everything, it's almost like Jesus knew we needed to talk about it. But it's this idea of I keep thinking, because I knew we were talking about this and then this happened, I kept thinking, what would have happened if everyone just said, just do no harm? What if everyone walking into that situation, be it from anybody, even spectators, just took the point of just do no harm? What would have happened? What if we were living our lives in a way that we were looking at people and saying, I'm not going to do any harm to you, even though I don't know you. I'm not going to do any harm to you, even though I'm in a bad mood. What if if everyone there had that mentality, how could things have been so different? But instead, we live in a fallen world. Not everyone is doing this.
And I don't know. I thought I was ready to talk about this. It hurts me because, I live with law enforcement, and I trust. We cannot apply the situation of a couple of officers to everyone. And Trey and I were talking earlier, and he said, their chief watched their body cameras and fired them immediately. That's very telling that they knew that something was wrong. And I hope and pray that that's not the end for them, because I don't think that it is. And we just have to pray that now the people making decisions are not repaying evil for evil, that they are seeking justice and righteousness. And another verse in Romans says that Christ broke, I'm paraphrasing, Adam's sin, Jesus broke that cycle, and we get forgiveness through our relationship with Christ, and his sacrifice is enough for each of us, and that we can, hurt people.
Well, it's just this idea that it's a psychology phrase that many people have said many times. People that have been hurt, not necessarily ill-intentioned, but just because they've been hurt, they hurt other people. And a lot of this do no harm, why we're having a problem with it, is not because it's not a good idea. If I told you don't go murder someone, you'd be like, yeah, stupid, that makes sense. The problem is that someone hurt us, and so it's either we want to hurt somebody else, or I a feeling to exact justice, or even how come they get to act that way and I don't? And this is where, like I said, psychologists say this all the time, hurt people. Someone has to be the one to break that cycle. And that verse that Liz said, and it's Romans 5, it's like Jesus broke the cycle with his sacrifice. So we need to live like that sacrifice applies and it's real.
And that it's enough, that we don't have to do wrong things heaping on. It's not going to make anything right. We have to fight for justice in ways that make sense and that are safe and that aren't causing harm to other people.
I think realistically, like one of the best things anyone can do is just start with that. Again, it's a simple phrase, it's hard to live out. How can I just not do harm to somebody? I'm in quarantine and my family's driving crazy. Great. How can I not do harm to those people? When my sister or brother says something that really ticks me off and I really want to yell something back, how can I choose to not harm them, even though they may have harmed me? Because that's how life works. People are going to harm you, whether intentional or not. Bad things are just going to happen. Are we going to choose, though, not to react in a way that harms someone? Another psychology thing that people say is, you can't control how you feel, but you can control how you react. So when someone hurts you, the way you feel because of that,
It's how you feel.
That's how you feel. It's not a bad thing. You feel that way. How you react because of that feeling defines your character and defines you as a person.
And who Christ is in you.
Yes.
And do we want to reflect Christ in our actions and shine the love and the light of Jesus in the world that can be so very dark at times? Or, are we going to not?
That's the breaking of the cycle. Christ chose to die on a cross so that we could be forgiven, to break that cycle. Because otherwise it would just be sinful people living with sinful people, hurting sinful people over and over. And so instead he came down, and when people trashed his name, he did no harm. When people wanted things from him, he did no harm. When people accused him of things he didn't do and took him to crucify him on a cross, he did no harm. The idea is that he broke the cycle with his sacrifice so that we could be forgiven. We can have God's Holy Spirit live in us because we're forgiven, and we can now live like God's Holy Spirit is in us by treating people as God would want us to treat them, by viewing someone as a child of God who maybe just doesn't know it yet. Could do no harm.
And I think in a world that can be very dark, that's going to stand apart. And people are going to say, why do you react the way you do? Why are you, responding in this way? And that gives us that moment to share the good news of Jesus to the people who notice that we stand apart from what's going on in the world.
It's our chance to shine. Doing no harm.
We would love to talk to you more about this. If you want to join us, if you're watching on social media, if you're watching on the YouTube channel, you can jump on to the Zoom call and we'll have a chat over there. Or you can reach out to Troy and I individually. You should have our email, our
FUMCfirewater.com has all the information.
It's there. We love you. We want you to know that you are loved above all else by the God who created you in his image. And we hope to see you playing games at After Hours too.
Yeah, does do no harm count in hockey? Because I would have broken it.
And cut.